All right, hey everybody. So I just wanted to do a bonus video and talk about um, building chemical reactions, essentially, or any kind of reaction that we set up in the lab, whether it's a restriction digest or PCR. There's generally the order of things that you want to do when you're assembling these kinds of reactions. And so here I have my tube where we're going to be assembling this reaction. I got my pipette. So the first thing you want to do, I should also mention opening tubes like this. There's a good way to do it, and then there's the not so good way. And so sometimes you'll see people kind of do it like this. And that's the not so good way of doing it. So what happens in that process? So as you're flicking it up like that, see how your thumb touches the inside ridge of the microcentrifuge tube? That's not good. Essentially, what can happen is you can get contamination of the tubes that way. And so the best way to open a tube up is to use your fingernail and pull it up like that. And so for most of the stuff we're doing, it's not that big of a deal. But later in the semester, we're going to be doing RNA extractions. And if you touch the inside of the tube anywhere with your thumb like this, or this part, ribonucleases that are present on your hands, they're present in water droplets, they're just sort of out there. They can destroy RNA. And so it would lead to contamination of your RNA and destruction of your sample. And so getting used to opening tubes very carefully and not touching the inner part of the tube at all is key to success for later stuff in the semester. All right, so we have this empty tube right now that we're going to be assembling a reaction in. So we're going to start off with our water. Okay, and so we have our tube. See how I'm like holding it up to my eyes here. We want to watch the tip go down into the bottom of that tube and watch the water get released there. And you want to see the water in the bottom of that tube. Um, okay, so there you can see it in the bottom of the tube. We're sure we have the water there. Okay, so now we're gonna go and we're gonna get some buffer. All right, I'm gonna set my pipette down to 1 microliter because we're only adding some buffer now to our tube. We're gonna come in, all right, and we look at our tip. You know, we're sure that we actually have a microliter there. We can see it in the tip. Okay, and so that's key. Whenever you're pipetting stuff, look at the tip and see that it's there. Um, Even like when you're taking stuff, when you're going to take stuff out, like you're getting the buffer out of the tube, pick the tube up and look at it as you're pipetting it out. Okay, so now we have our 1 microliter of buffer. We're going to add that directly down into that water that we have just put in. We're going to add it directly. Okay, so then we're going to get our enzyme. We're going to put that in. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to do it wrong. Let's see if we can get this on video right. Okay, so this time I just have the tip kind of dangling in the middle of the tube. I haven't actually touched it anywhere, and I've just pipetted out, and all of that liquid is sort of dangling on the side of the tip. Okay, if you don't go down all the way into the bottom of your tube and physically touch the water there, you're never going to be sure that you've gotten everything out of your tip. Okay. And so you can see now we don't have anything on our tip. This is particularly true of things like buffers and the enzymes that when you go to pipette them out, sometimes they'll just come out of the tip and stick to the outside of the tip. And if you're just dangling your tip in the middle of the tube, then you're not actually sure that you're transferring the material down there. Okay, when we're dealing with really small volumes like this, like when the PCR reactions, you're going to be doing like 0.2 microliters of stuff. So, you know, when you go to pipette it up, make sure, you know, I'm going to do a bad thing here and touch the tip, but it's fine because we're not using it. We're not going to put this in anything real anymore. You know, if you put 0.2 microliters in here, you should see a little tiny bit of liquid in there. So always double check that you see stuff in your tip. And then when you go to get rid of it, make sure that you're getting rid of it down into the bottom of stuff. And so the other thing I've kind of noticed is, you know, people, you you want to get used to the rhythm of pipetting. Okay, so I've drawn something up into my tip. And so what I'm going to do is come down. I'm going to push down to that first stop to get rid of it. And then I'm going to push out a little bit just to make sure that everything's gone. And then I'm going to come up at, oh, so let me repeat that again. Okay. So we have something in our tip. We're coming down, we're putting it down into the bottom of the tube. We're watching it very carefully, pushing down just a little bit further past the stop to push a little air out. And then while we're holding our thumb down, we're taking the tip out. And so that's going to guarantee that you're not going to pull any of your stuff up, right? If you pipe it out and then let go of the tip, we've now just drawn stuff back up in there, and we don't want to do that. The other thing that you can do is go down. All right, so if we're putting something in there, go down in there and then pipette up and down a few times and sort of stir the tip around to make sure that you're mixing everything. And then before you take your tip out, go down to that stop again, push out a little bit extra, and then bring it out. And then, you're guaranteed that you're not going to get anything remaining in your tip. Okay, so I just want people to be a little more careful when you're assembling reactions, just making sure that everything is going down into the bottom of the tube, because that can, if you're not 100% sure that you've put stuff down into the bottom of that tube, you can sort of miss things, even though you might have physically pushed the plunger down up and down. You might not have actually transferred it in there if you haven't physically touched it. So you're not going to be reusing the same tip. You're going to get a new tip when you're going and getting your buffer and your enzyme and stuff like that. So there's really no reason to not touch the tip down into the bottom of the tube. Okay, so that's just my little bonus video on trying to be really sure about assembling reactions. Thank you.